Okay, let's all stand. Let's vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Let's stand and say pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Before we get to public comments, so the reason Alan isn't here tonight is he lost his mother this morning, and he's down to the table. So before we go any further, I'd like to say a prayer for over the meeting. Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this evening. We thank you for everything you've given us here in Page County as American citizens. Lord, I just pray right now for Alan and his family. Lord, you be with them in their time of loss and guide them and direct them in the days to come. And ask you that you be with us tonight and all the decisions we make, that they're in your wisdom. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Amen. Okay. Public comment, and there's a limit of 5 minutes. If anybody has a public comment, this is the time for that. If you have something to say in public comment.
You step up to here for and give your name if you would please.
Okay. My name is Kevin Evans. I'm a doctor of chiropractic. I am also a specialist in digestive enzymes and functional neurology. I have a Bachelor of Science in Zoology. And take 24 hours of continuing education every year on health and medical issues. I come here tonight to try to impart some experiences I've had in hopes that in my life I want as much information as possible before I make any important decisions. And so, based on what I've experienced, I hope to help you guys make, it sounds like a very important decision or whatever you have. The reason I might be of use to use information is because my house was northwest of Marion, Missouri, when they brought the wind turbines to our area. I really wasn't too concerned about it at the time, honestly, because they tried to do this before and then it kind of fizzled out. This time, though, it kind of went through really quickly before I realized it, and I had a good friend on the what we call the commissioners there, and so I talked to him, and he assured me that where they placed them would be okay, it wouldn't be a problem, and he had good contact with those people, the turbine company, and so I was hoping everything would turn out right, because at that time we really couldn't do anything about it. It was too late. When they were placed, I assumed they would be placed on hilltops where you would see the most wind. Instead, they do studies to determine where the best wind currents are, and then they place them there, which isn't always on top of the hill. It could be on the side of the hill or something like that. So what ended up happening is 3 of them were placed in close proximity to my house within about a half a mile. I own 7 acres, so they obviously weren't going to be right on top of me, so I thought, well, there again, that might not be too bad. After they were built, this was in, I think, 2019, we started to notice that you could hear the wind turbines almost every day, even when the wind wasn't blowing that much, just because there was one in different directions, so depending on how the wind blew, I would probably hear from a different one almost every day when you stepped outside, which very again you might not think is that big a deal, but that constant rhythmic whoosh kind of gets on your nerves, to be honest, because I moved out to the country for a reason. I moved for peace and quiet and countryside, and not obviously didn't want close neighbors and things like that. We also noticed other things. When my mother came to visit, she was just out there in the truck waiting on my father, and he was on leave, and the wind turbine at certain times the sun will shine through the blades, and you will get a flicker. And just sitting there for about 10-15 minutes, she developed a migraine headache from the flicker of the wind turbine from the shadow across my front yard. We would also get flickers other times in different rooms based on whichever where the sun was, obviously, and how many across the team. I started noticing sleeping problems. I have very poor eyes, but pretty good ears. And I would have to go to sleep with the TV on so that I could go to sleep. Otherwise, the rhythmic motion of the sound of the children would keep me from going to sleep. So that became my nightly rituals. Turn on the TV, set a timer so it would eventually go off after I would fall asleep. It became an issue where, to the point, we finally decided we needed to move. It was affecting my life to that extent. So we decided to sell our house in March of 2020. And so the last 2 years we've been living in a rent house, 2 different rent houses, while we've been trying to build a new house. With COVID and everything, you can imagine the difficulties that has happened. I intended to come up here way before now, but with building the house, I've been kind of busy with that. I kind of felt an urge to come up here and share my experiences with you guys so that you would, just have more information because somebody's actually been through it. My friend was on the commissioner. I talked to him about different things, like the one that was extremely, I thought close to my house. It was about a quarter mile away. It's the one I heard mostly. Most of the time, and he got the point, he said, I can't do anything. So I think that's why I wanted to let you commissioners know. I don't know what they promised. They promised that, hey, you'll have control, and you'll be able to direct things and like that, but once that happens, you lose your control and do whatever they want to do.
Thank you, Kevin. Time up. Oh, here's time. I have a question for you. Down there in your practice, have you had any concerns with your practice or anything?
As a functional neurologist, I have seen an increase in neurological symptoms as far as that goes. Much like, if you have like a strobe light, it's going to get input to the nervous system. And so some people are going to be more susceptible to that than others. And, if I turn this light on here, for example, and I do this, after a while, you guys might say, "Did you stop that?" and I say, "Well, why?" Well, it's kind of irritating. Oh, well, I can see that. I will stop that. But you can't imagine what the little flicker in your house does when you're separating. It's just off on the side of your vision, and it's again, and it's again. And so that's what I see a lot of times with the neurological symptoms, because it's input to the brain and spinal cord, and so some people are really active on it.
Anybody else?
My name is Murray Gordon. I'm from Bedford, and we had a little bit of my story is about the same as his. Kind of how this all happened is we had Mid-American or MVG or whoever it is coming around doing this. This meeting, they kind of did it in a way that was secret. First of all, they came to the absentee landowners and had a meeting with them in Taylor County. Got them to sign on or shared their interests with the landowners, trying to get them to have them come in with us. And then they came around to the landowners that were, had the land and then they lived on the land. We didn't know anything about this until it was really about too late. You guys are a little bit different situation. You know what's going on right up front. So that was kind of one of the things that really bothered us. We were never contacted. We live 6 miles west of Bedford. I have 4 turbines around my house. There's one northwest of my house. It's 1,577 feet from my home. There's one that's 1,700 some odd feet from my home. There's another one that's 2,400 feet. And the other one's just a little over half a mile from my home. So with all that happening, of course, we tried to find out where they were putting them. Nobody could tell you anything. I went to the supervisor's meeting. They go, "We don't even know where they're going." So, you know, it was kind of a bad deal, you know, they never came around to us as the people that were living around them. We're gonna have to deal with the noise. You know, they're so close to my house, we really don't even notice the light, you know, the strobe light, but we do notice the sound coming out. During construction, they were up and down our road, we widened the roads, they say they're gonna put them back like they were. They weren't cut back like they were. Our corner, I've asked it to be fixed while they were still there. They said, we'll get somebody over here. Nobody showed up, they didn't fix it. My wife went over and talked to, they had headquarters over there just west of our house. My wife went over and talked to them about what all was going on. We had a gentleman that was, they were hauling the gravel. They parked outside, across the road from our house, and there were 2 trucks. And one of the gentlemen decided to relieve himself there. It was one of the truck drivers. And my wife and my daughter were in the house. And, you know, pretty unprofessional. Okay, so that happened. Some of the other things, I mean, my son-in-law and my daughter were living with us at the time. We worked construction. They normally have a speed limit they're supposed to obey. They weren't doing that. Right? He had to go out and he actually stopped and talked to one of the head guys. Imagine the anxiety that we felt not knowing what was going to happen. I mean, there was many times. I mean, you just get so wound up about this thing. Granted, we're a small person in this big scheme of things, okay? But, I mean, it is, I can't tell you the amount of hours of lost sleep that I've had. It's like having a washing machine or a dryer right outside your bedroom and running all the time. You can't shut it off. You can't ground it out. I mean, we do sleep with a fan on in the room during the summer, just to ground it out enough where we can sleep. We've hired an attorney. Nothing's happened with that, of course, because of COVID. Everything's been shut down. One of the advantages that you guys have is you have the advantage of saying yes or no to this. If you say yes to it, you're opening up the whole thing. You're not going to get them stopped once they start. You need to understand that. We've had different people, just like this other gentleman spoke, that came out and were working on buildings for us and stuff. And they said, how do you stay that? Well, what are you going to do? You know, it's kind of one of those deals that we didn't have a choice, we didn't have a say in it, nothing. They put them where they put them, we just have to do it. Does that if we get anything out of them. They did send us a good neighbor agreement. I've asked several farmers if they read the agreement. Most of them said, no, I just want the money. Big mistake. You know, I can understand why they do it, why they want it. They run on their property. But they don't, you know, it doesn't affect them because they don't live there. That's the bad thing. Most of the people that have signed on that are landowners, they're not close enough to the turbine seed here. And so I suggest you check into this a little bit closer. Hopefully you have made your minds up, but it will affect people. Like I said, I can't tell you the number of hours that I've lost. I mean, I get up in the night. If I get up at 2:30 to go to the bathroom, I'm up until I get up to it.
That's 5 minutes. One thing on the road question I had. So they did put the road back like they were supposed to?
Mostly.
And it was, the company was in there. Which we have that experience here. They did what they're supposed to do also. Okay, that's 5 minutes. Thank you.
Brandon Hunter, removed by the insurance cost, Missouri. Everybody mentioned that, I was going to do that as the same company that ended up selling 6 months to a year, sold out. So just kind of springboard into the health things. Wind farm developers, they do not deny any impact to those living in the footprint. Farmers that sign up are told to, but you need to read farther than the price tag, and you have to care. The county supervisor rules protect residents, not the absentee landowners and the populace. There are actually farmers that sign up for land, but the land surrounding their home that signed the land, but the land surrounding their home, protecting themselves with a buffer. Side of the land, not anywhere close to their house, for good reason. They want the impact, they don't bat an eye, those the footprint one. Landowners that signed up directly across from our land, west of our home, with significant amounts. The landowner that signed up directly across the road, west of our home, with significant amounts of land contract with the home. We visited 33 homes in one township among the wind farm footprint. One of the homes was actually signed up land he lived on. One person besides him was not bothered about living in the wind farm. He made a point to mention the land around the property was not the sort of land that needed a turbine, so they were safe. 20 homes out of all those did not want them anywhere near the home. 3 of those 20 people were very distraught when we showed them the sign, the footprint of the land around it. 4 homes didn't really care, didn't want, more or less didn't want to fight, because they thought it was too big a fight to do, and it was a really kind of a deal. 8 of them weren't home. Only one person in this whole township was on the land that signed up, supervisor or protected residents, knows what you're in. So I made a screenshot of the neighborhood agreement that he was talking about there. And it says, owner understands and accepts that the construction and operation of generating units may have some impacts on the project's neighbors, including owner's property, including, for example, the following. Owner may experience extra noise, dust, and traffic during operation of the project. Owners may notice some or all of the following on owner's property: sounds from the generating units, shadow flicker from sunlight passing through retaining waves from the generating units, light from federal aviation administration, required lighting on the generating units, other lights related to the project facilities, the impact on the view or other visual effects from the project, vibration, air turbulence, weight and electromagnetic and frequency interference from the generating units and other project facilities. So like it's one of those commercials for the medication. It may cause this, may cause that, may cause that. Probably will. The salesman, Crown and Lamper, they went on and on about building relationships with the community, but not once introduced themselves to actual residents within the footprint of their contracts. Instead, they're dividing residents against residents and residents against farmers, with us versus them. He sent letters, Crown sent letters encouraging those who have signed up to get excited so that they can diminish the resistance from the residents. Promising hats and t-shirts for the landowners to wear proudly as residents scramble to find a hope to safe setback from the largest land turbines right now in the market. Meanwhile, Lampa's fielding phone calls and emails from worried residents. He tells us all the same thing. We're following your county ordinance and cannot make any additional setbacks unless that ordinance asks for it. So it appears that you guys could do that. I have a list of all the people that said no, they've not been contacted once by a bid. So just again asking you guys to consider that, consider all these things. Well, like you said, once they come in, they're gonna take over, and more and more and more, and everyone's gonna lose control. So okay.
Good evening. I'm Sherry Hunter, and Brandon's wife, so down by Blanchard. First, we just want to tell Ellen that we're praying for him, and very sorry for those involved. Super nervous. We live on an acreage, small acreage, with a little over 5 acres. For us, it seems big. For what we want, it's kind of like what we always wanted. Anyway, we have 4 children. We also are certified foster and adoptive parents. So as you can imagine, we have quite the traffic for our home, especially special needs and some babies at times. We do farm. We have a small acreage. We don't plant soybeans, and we don't plant corn unless it's sweet. And a farmer is defined as a person who cultivates land, crops, or raises animals for food. And we do that. We have meat chickens that we process ourselves on our farm, our little acreage. We have egg layers as well. We have dairy goats, horses, and we plant a garden every year. And we even have a son that is beginning to train ponies as a business, and he's planning on growing that business as he grows. And we have another son that wants to step into that as well. We use our land, all of our land, as anybody that buys land wants to do. Take care of it, cultivate it, and enjoy it. Chuck, I know you're on record stating that the turbines will help farmers' children continue to farm on their dad's land. And I think that's a beautiful thing. But we have kids too. We have a very small acreage, but it's the way we want to raise our children. And I tell you what, I hate to choke up, but there is this beautiful thing of having hope in providing food. And there is nothing against soybeans, nothing against corn. That's wonderful. But when we plant industrial wind turbines, that goes kind of against what even 4-H, the founder of 4-H, that's what we're raising our kids into. Being creators, being entrepreneurs, building up this business for themselves. Our kids are important. We have one son, we told you about him, epilepsy, cerebral palsy, autism, auditory processing disorder are just a few of the latest. Here's my point. Isaac Lampa stated this. We've been in contact a lot with him. We have land that's being, that we saw the engineers out there, we talked with them. There's a spot that's a little less than a half a mile away from our home. On the northwest corner, where my son's living, is the only safe bedroom we have in our house at this time. I just want you to understand that. Isaac said, we went out and got feedback from our participating landowners as well as folks that are going to be around the project. That is a blatant lie. We have found people, even in the thickest footprint, never been contacted. That's not what they're talking about. They did not contact the people that would be around the project. So, when they were questioned, again, Crowell said, yes, sir, that is correct. And then he also states at the end that he was 100% truthful in everything. Now, you can bend words all you want, but tell me why in Venergy and Isaac Lampa have surveyed our land since 2017, but not once surveyed the people living here. Not once. Tell me why they hire a wildlife specialist to watch for birds, hawks, eagles, bats, and other endangered species for 18 months or something like that. I couldn't get him to respond and answer that question exactly how long, but I think that's what the wildlife manual does. But not once knocked on any of our doors to see the special needs, and I'm just pointing this out. There has to be some sort of checks and balances. Little lies might seem like little lies, but this is little lies about a lot. We only did one township, and we've started another township, and we haven't found anyone that said yes. Not one. And I just want you guys to understand that. Not once. So why do birds and eagles get setbacks? But some kid doesn't.
Sherry, we're out of time. I got a question, if I may. You used the term footprint. Can you help me understand your definition?
Contracted land.
Okay.
So we know the substation is proposed to be.
Okay.
So the contract, you see the fingers in the contracted land. We talked to the engineers. We even stated the spot. Oh, this is the perfect spot for it to run.
Because to the showing point back here, we've not seen a project yet. When we do, we will know turbine location. I mean, I know
you say that. And I'm just going to point out the fact that when you were running for office, you stated that we'd like to keep the South Highway 2 to preserve the county's beauty. I think that's really interesting that that's where they're putting their project. And maybe that's a coincidence, but I'm tired of us being considered wasteland. It's my home. I have kids, and they matter.
The thing I'm concerned about there is the lack of light, dishonesty of salesmen in this room.
I'm proving it.
Except the vacuum bill, I was run out of town. That's one. And it made me think of when they were down here on the road, they weren't supposed to use East West Braddale, and they did. And we went to, I was at the broker agreement, we're supposed to use this, we're supposed to go around. And then the same company, we asked them if they could grind it up, and they offered to pay half after they broke their word. So I'm not real impressed with the ethics of this alcohol.
I would
So
like to-
thanks for doing all the research to figure it out.
One more thing I'd like to add is Mark Carl said he wasn't going anywhere and his email is deactivated. Hi, my name is Tracy Gersteny. I kind of planned to speak. I don't have anything really prepared, but I just wanted to follow up a little bit on Brandon and Sherry. My husband and I have been out canvassing as well, and we have been in Colfax Township. Our family was sidelined with stomach flu a few weeks ago, and so we did not think that might be the best thing to go door to door with. So we have not gotten to as many houses as we would like, and we have only caught about half of the residents home. However, out of the 8 families we have talked to, 5 have not been contacted at all. I understand that might be a slight white lie, that might be a twisting of words, but I can tell you this much. If I am going to lock arms with a company, if I go to say purchase a car, and I feel that that salesman is being dishonest with me in the least bit, I'm running. And I am running as fast as I can, and I am not investing in their product. So, out of 8 families that we have personally talked to, 5 have not been contacted at all. 1 has been contacted, and they are signed up. The other 2 had been contacted, but it had been quite a while, and nothing had been recent to tell them that they were about to be very close to turbines. And both of those had land large enough that they could have signed up to have turbines had they chosen to. So that was our small findings, just to get that.
My name is Michael Hearn. I've been a beekeeper since 1983, and I've made a living off of outdoors the whole time. I've had a steady job since 1983. So I've been deeply involved with birds and all the animals and the bees. And that steam turbines, they changed migratory routes of birds. They killed an untold number of birds. They're hard on bees, and I've not been contacted, and there's been a survey crew down on my back. Was my neighbor back here. Then I only own 5 acres. And it was like a dream come true. Moved to the country. Well, then we had to deal with hogs. Then now we have to deal with wind turbines. How much more does the guy have to put up with? I mean, it's not good for people. The electromotive force, EMF, you're correct. It's not healthy. I don't care who says they live under them, it's all right. The big picture is they're not good for anyone. They put in a bunch southwest of my house in Missouri several years ago, and when it started at night, I could hear them. And they put in an even bigger bunch southwest or southeast of my house now. People think Iowa doesn't have beautiful sunsets, beautiful scenery. Wait until they put those in, you'll know. Because I go every night and look at the sunset. I get up in the morning and I look at the sunrise, and it's beautiful. But when I look into Missouri and see that mess, I'm not sure I even want to live there if this happens. This is disgusting. I've been involved in a lot of things with government's done where we try to get our point of view across, and we always get screwed. Don't screw us. We're tired of it. I mean, I've got to build it. And you guys can stand up and be bent and actually represent us, or you can fold like everybody else I've ever known to do. For this big company, not London. Let people take the money. They're not the people who are doing it. We are. We're sick of it.
I'm Darla Berrigan from Point, Iowa. I had no intention of speaking tonight, oh my goodness. I live on a little less than 2 acres. And I just want to make one point before I say anything else. Things were already done illegally in this county by another board of Page County to my property on a cell tower that's going up. The county did not follow their bylaws by contacting me and writing. And so I already have a very bad feeling about our elected officials in this county. It was very much misrepresentation. And the only way I could have stopped that meeting that day was to hire a lawyer. I didn't have the money to hire a lawyer, so it didn't happen. So now I have a cell tower going up by me that the bylaws were changed, which probably, basically, nobody in this room that probably even knew about it, because it wasn't even put the paper correctly on where this tower was going. We have elected you as our officials to stand for we the people that live in this county. We are God-given people to this country by God, not by evolution. The big businesses coming in and wiping us out one by one. When are we going to be heard? The truckers are standing up for us right now. When are we going to have the backbone to stand up for our own county and say, no, you're taking productive farmland out of production that feed not just our county, the United States, but the world. And we hear all the time that, well, there's ample amount of corn or beans or whatever, and then we hear, well, we're going to starve in X amount of years because we're taking land out of production. So why is our county and our board of supervisors even considering this? You're taking productive farm ground out that's productive. They want to do this, take it to a place where you're not taking out farm ground that's going to feed the hungry, going to feed the poor. Why would anybody consider that? I have an elderly friend, 92 years old in Fremont County, who has farm ground. They knocked on her door more than once. She told them twice, no. First time she let him in, second time she didn't, she told him right through the door, no, I told you no, I will not do this. Then they started coming back after dark and ringing her doorbell. She had cameras, so she quit going to the door. They have finally quit coming to her farm. Why would you harass a 92-year-old woman? To me, that's harassment. And I've told her if they come back again, she's to call the sheriff's department and report them. That's uncalled for. And I've had geese and ducks behind my house in 20 years practically. I've lived there now on my little acreage every spring and every fall. Since they went in down east of Tarkio, I see zero. So don't tell me it doesn't change the migration. I now have 2 eagles just over the hill to the west in the tree line now. I think they're starting to build a nest. Why would we take that away? Why would we put these monstrosities on our ground? So again, I stand here as a citizen of the United States and proud of it, and a Christian saying, why are you not standing for the people? I think it says it right here tonight. How many people are here? And I'm sure there's others who would like to have been here. Listen to the people, not big business. Listen to the citizens who live here, support your schools, support your businesses, pay their money here. Because if this comes in, you're probably going to lose your citizens, so then you're going to lose more money because they won't be buying and supporting your schools and your businesses. Please support our county and the people.
Yeah, very good.
Hi, I'm Robin Sunderman. I live northwest of Vernon near Bethesda. Right now, we don't know if there's projects in our area or not, but we are concerned citizens for our whole county and for our state and for our nation. Wind generators, solar panels, and this pipeline they're talking about are not green energy, and they are not going to be cost effective for our energy sources of our country. They're costing all taxpayers billions of federal dollars to put in green energy and to make it like this is the thing to do. But you can see right now our country needs the fossil fuel industry. We can look at where Europe is right now, where we're dependent now on foreign oil and foreign sources for our energy. Europe also, especially Germany, they've had wind energy in that country and gotten rid of their fossil fuels and now are dependent on Russia and foreign nations for their energy. They're also seeing that wind generators have a life expectancy of 25 to 30 years, and they're facing what to do with the life expectancy that's gone from their wind generators, and they don't know what to do with taking them down. The cost for taking them down right now, to take a wind generator down is like $500,000. So the landowners that are collecting money in 25 years better not come to the taxpayers to take those wind generators down in 25 years. And you know the companies are not going to be around because they can manipulate their contracts. So it's going to be up to the landowner or taxpayers to take down the monstrosities in 25 years. If they're not a reliable source of energy, whether wind is blowing or sun is shining, we can't depend on them for energy sources. And then also besides the birds, the soil itself takes 90-foot pit of concrete to hold one of those wind turbine stands. So what are you going to do with 90-foot pit of concrete when those things have to be taken down? The components to them are not recyclable, so there's no way of what you're going to do with the components. When they take it down, we destroy the soil and other things, besides the mental health and health issues for the people that have to live near them. So we do really need to consider, do we really want to invest billions of our federal tax dollars into a so-called environmental energy sources, or do we need to really look at what is the long-term needs that we have in our state, our county, our country for our energy sources? Thank you.
I have a letter that a landowner that lives out of state sent me and wanted me to get it into the right hands. She owns land in Page County. She was a Page County resident and then she moved out of state. And so the letter just states she wants them nowhere near her land or in this county and gives concerns. And I just spoke to Chuck a couple years ago. You told me you really weren't getting the picture. I hope you're starting to get the picture nowadays. Yep.
I again wasn't going to get up here and say anything, but standing in the back of the room and watching the lack of respect that you give our citizens, Chuck, on your phone, making sure that when their 5 minutes is up, that Jacob's cut them off. On your website, you have an hour-long meeting that we asked to have the other side. It is called the Wind Energy Forum. But here you can't give these citizens that take time out of their day to come here and speak enough time to get out what they want to say when you have it right on on your Page County website for everyone to go see anytime, Chuck. And you have no respect. It just disgusts me the way you sit there with your facial expressions on your phone. Jacob, 5 minutes is up. Mm-hmm. It's disheartening, Chuck. Yep.
You've got another one.
And the blue Blue sweatshirt.
No sweatshirt.
Come on up here.
Okay.
Don't be shy.
Yeah.
They've got time.
Yeah.
I'm Joe Justice, and I live just northeast of town, I guess Main Street, north of probably one back here. We moved down here about 5 years ago, 6 years ago now, this fall. Looking to get out of big city life, get closer to our roots, if you will. Jacob, I guess, I kind of feel like I know why this is personal to you. But Chuck, I want you to look around this room. Look everybody here in the eye. Take a peek. Just right here. Take a look. What skin in the game do you have?
What skin of the game?
Mm-hmm.
What skin of the game I have is to tell you that since 2012, there have been land lease agreements in Page County that have been negotiated. 3 years ago, our board of supervisors, your elected officials, adopted an ordinance that you people don't like, but it's a fair ordinance. And we have 400 landowners who have signed some sort of land agreement. So I don't see these 400 people here, but I represent them as well. And from my point of view, if you let me finish.
Don't take my 5 minutes, Chuck.
You go ahead. Go ahead. No, my answer is this. We told this group that when we got the project, we would take a week to look at it, make sure everybody had a chance to look at it, and have a meeting like this. And now tonight, we get this call for action. The fact of the matter is that ship has sailed.
You've already sold it.
No.
That ship has sailed.
No, it's not.
I've not been sold out.
Well,
Yeah.
I've not been
Yeah, so
sold
I have a
out.
question, one thing I thought, this is a compromise, we are supposed to compromise. And a good compromise, both sides will upset. The side that's desperate for wind or whatever, they're whistling Dixie right now. They have no upset at all. So I mean, I don't see this as, the ordinance is in place, I do not see it being a compromise in that light. Because again, they're, in a good compromise, both sides will be able to upset. If it's not far enough, the people's like, well, I missed out on one. That's a compromise. And that's what I just don't see that. That's what I see here.
Well, what I'd like on the compromise, there is room for compromise, I think. Well, let's have some discussions that find solutions rather than focusing on problems. And
Is that how you find solutions for that?
you got to understand the problem, but look, you spend more time looking for solutions.
Okay, so here's the thing. I think we look around the room, look around the county. I think every one of us has come to the conclusion that the concept of love thy neighbor, whether you're a Bible believing Christian or whether you just simply don't have a need in your life, the idea of loving your neighbor, looking out for one's neighbor, is a good concept, especially in the local community.
Right, I agree.
So you're looking at this idea of compromise. What kind of compromise are we looking at? Because what I'm seeing here is there's nothing being said about the safety zones. These are known facts, these are known problems, right? The safety zones are there for the workers, they're there during construction, they're there to tell me where I can and can't build on my property. If I'm first contacting the tower, I guess the energy or whoever it is. So
That's misinformation. That is truly misinformation.
Okay, that's correct.
I'll have you talk to the people at Inverity and ask them, because.
Don't you know?
I have, I can speak personal knowledge, I can speak all I want here. I was in Shenandoah, and Mark, or Nolan, whatever his name was, somebody was in Benedict, he wasn't anymore not. I asked him what 1,500 feet was the point. I had to direct myself, let's say here, he said, safety, noise, we don't want to get closer than that. That's what he told me.
Closer than what?
1,500 feet. He's like, especially somebody who didn't sign up all their rights away.
Okay.
So I was told that directly from Mark Churchill, and I was testify that for a while. So they're very much fit. It's not right or loud and all kinds of issues here. They're not just flowers going across the road. So.
No, I don't disagree with that.
There is
On the word of compromise, in one of our previous meetings, I had a speaker, I think it was Jesse Simmons, stood right up there and said, "What about me?" And I said, "Let me ask you a question, Jesse," because we're in the discussion on property rights, which to me is what it boils down to, and I know it boils down to that for you as well. And I said, "So what do you mean, what about me? What kind of compromise are you looking for? Zero turbines."
Ryan Yurkowski and another gentleman over here, you betcha. And so I think there's a percentage of this anti-wind group that you're entitled to that opinion. I respect that. I mean, that's great. But there's a percentage where the only compromise is 0. And then that means people that wish to participate, they are denied that right. And the other thing that I'd like to make a statement on are how we talk about absentee landowners. Yes, there are a lot of absentee landowners in Page County. But I wish we would quit vilifying them, because they're not all corporate bad people. There are a lot of 4th generation century farmers who, because the 3rd and 4th generation kids had different aspirations and couldn't make it during the tough times of the 80s on the farm, moved to the city. And they take great care of that land.
They've got nothing to lose other than the game.
Well, it's their land.
The people that are here today have nothing to
It's not
gain.
our
It's
land.
on my
It's
land,
not
Chuck.
your
You don't understand that.
If they own the land, they have the right to put up the dirt.
Yes, and keep the problems that come with that on their property. Keep it away from me and my family. That's what I'm asking.
As far as this ordinance goes, we talked about this before. In our ordinance, it says anyone that wears that, right? Anyone. I mean, we could do any lengths we want, and it could be waived. Which is where I think my biggest argument is, if we, even if it's property line, whatever say, it can be waived. And I think all these individual acreage owners and farmers and whoever they didn't contact, wouldn't have contacted them. That would have forced them to contact. I don't think that's right.
Discussion for this next round.
But actually, it's not. Don't give us a bunch of smoke up our skirts. You are the biggest smoke blower I've ever listened to. Not that. Thank you.
Now, one thing is, what's on the agenda tonight, this timing, when people brought to my attention, I asked them to be on it. The timeline is alarming people, they're not sure how this is going to work.
Chairman, I talked to this group, every week, I don't even talk to this group.
Oh, you don't? Okay.
Well, unless you want. Yeah, I talked to you guys every week. I said this already.
The whole point, I think this is, people are very concerned, it's understandable. And I think anybody should have empathy for that. But the timeline, I think, is the main best. People are concerned and want to figure out what the timeline is, and they're very concerned about the thing. That's what the sole page of this one. So that's just, that needs to be done after tonight. And start working towards these things.
I don't know any time, I mean.
Well, it's kind of some questions about the wording of our ordinance and how it goes to effect once it's submitted, is what I was told.
I just have to remind you, Chuck, that
Would
you
you?
do not represent the absentee landowners.
Absolutely.
You represent the citizens that live in Page County. So quit defending the absentee
I'm
landowners.
just telling you, Mandy, that the absentee landowners aren't bad people. They're generational.
Why are you defending them? Why are you implying that we are bad?
I'm not implying that. I'm just saying that I'm tired of them being vilified. If they pay taxes on that land for 100 years, and they, just because they don't occupy that land,
I pay taxes on my land.
doesn't mean they don't care about what happens in Page
That's
County.
not your job, Chuck. Your job is to represent me and all
And every person on the lease is not an absentee landowner.
but many are.
And I understand your point about people in Harris County will live there, that's the point you make. My personal situation, which happens to all of you, the outfit that owns the land surrounding my farm, I own 100 acres, I don't farm, is, I have tried for years to figure out what it is. And I was told by a previous bank manager, it's a secret that no one will ever know. So they've owned it for 2 years, so that's my personal situation.
And I understand that landowner exists.
It could be anybody, I think it could be good enough too, so. Anyway, there is situations where people inherit farm residence. Go ahead.
Mr. O'Snake, Chuck, you said we haven't mentioned compromise. We have, over and over, when we set it back to the property line. And if someone's going to make money in this nation, they have that right to make money in this nation, but you house your own liability.
Right.
Someone's liability should not spill over into my property. and that's what's happening.
Yeah.
My entire property is in the footprint. So my kids need to live in hard hats because that's the company's rule that their workers are in hard hats. That's the compromise, Chuck. We're not saying don't come. We're saying make it safe for us. That's what we're asking. And Chuck, I don't feel like there's any listening to this at all.
Yes.
Hear us. Hear us. Set it back so that we can let our kids play in our yards without worrying about these things. That's what we're asking.
Or if you can so choose to sell that, whatever you want, your decision. I agree with that.
I have one question. We have public nuisance laws in our town and in our county. In the town of Florinda, you're not allowed to have noise and things that are going to be harmful to your neighbors, or we call the law enforcement because they're too loud or noise or playing too loud of music or whatever. Why do the rural people not have the same ability to have public nuisance? If we have wind generators that are too loud and disturbing our peace and quiet of our homes, it seems like this doesn't apply to them.
There's a decibel limit in the ordinance.
Right. And I was that is true, and I think that has good intention. When I read that, I read it recently, it says under normal operating conditions. So we need to maybe let's look at it. Yeah, well, maybe just set it at 55 decibels.
Hey, pretty loud. Jesse Simpson here.
I gotta pay attention to you.
Yeah. I just wanted to reference what you had mentioned, that I had been up here a while back, and I was emotional at that time because I was really valued my country living and where I grew up, and I've been around the turbines enough and done enough research or hung out in Taylor County and hung out down in Atchison and just imagined what that would be like sitting on my porch at home, and wouldn't want that. But I think when I was saying what is there for me, I think it was like, what is the compromise that I am getting? And that is that property line that we've been pushing. I think is that fair? Okay, 50-50. Okay, right now it's kind of 100-0. 0 on our side. So let's go 50-50 and do property line, but that neighbor still gets their turbine. And I think that's probably the best compromise that we would be looking for. Sure, there's some of us that would rather not have turbines. I think everybody in Taylor County maybe thinks that now. In Atchison County, I think there's a lot of people upset down there. I've talked to people from Hopkins that live down in that area and they hate it. And so we need to be protected. My little 28 acre that I'm going to buy here in Page County soon could be overlapped easily by these trespass zone or safety zones. And if the company is saying 1,500 feet for a hard path for I mean, that's a real deal. I'm going to have to go wear my hard hat to go pick my green beans in my garden to keep that debris from coming down. So, I mean, I think that property line thing is a real deal and should be really strongly considered. I think that would be fair for you guys to give us that olive branch. So, thanks.
Thank you.
I'd just like to add a little quick too, that about your absentee landowners, I don't think any of us are saying they're bad people. I will say I have contacted a lot of absentee landowners, and pretty much a lot of them have told me that I would not want them in my backyard, but that's why I'm living there, because I don't live there, and I don't have to live around them. So I did lose respect for some of them absentee landowners, because people I've known my whole life are now making my family and my community live around them, but they don't want to live around them. That's why they're putting them here in Page County.
And how much more money does these people right around here put in our
county compared to absentee landlords.
That's right.
They all pay tax.
Yep.
They might pay more tax than everybody else, but these people put kids in their schools, the shop, absentee landlords.
They spend all the money they make.
Mm-hmm.
All of it.
And here you're protecting outside people? Really? Yeah, they pay taxes on their land, I agree with you. But the way you're going at this winter, down the road, their taxes are gonna go up. Because they got them monuments on it. It happened in the 70s with Blue Silence. And it's gonna happen again with these wind turbines.
Look at this side as well.
Mark my words.
Can you go back?
They proposed a wind farm, and they were gonna anchor the turbines off the coast of Rhode Island. You know, where all the politicians go to summer. You know what? They said, not in our backyard.
Yes, that's right.
I think I'm releasing the important Joe.
Humorous, no, Joe doesn't know where he is.
I'm not expecting an answer tonight, but I decided I probably should. My concern is about the young kids of this county. Look around. There's a ton of kids here right now. There's kids out in the hall. There's little infants here. My concern is about them. What about their future? What will happen with these turbines after 20 years have passed? Will it still be safe for us? I want to have kids. I want to be able to have them go out and play. I have the freedom to go out and play, and I have plenty of memories of them. I want my kids to have the same thing. Whether I'm in Iowa or another county, I still want to have my kids have the freedom to go out and play. I want safety. And just on my land, I want to go out and look at the night sky and see the lights. I don't want to see the blinking lights. I want to go out and see the sunset and sunrise, not the blinking lights. I want to enjoy the peaceful, quiet night and listen to snow fall on the ground, not the winter lights. So again, look around at the kids. They're our future. They're the next generation.
I have a question, just out of curiosity. Has anyone ever seen pictures of what the turbines look like when they explode and where all the fiberglass goes?
Yes.
Okay. What happens to that ground? Is it usable? After that, anybody know?
Burns all the bacteria.
Yeah, it is not usable. It's not.
I have a question. Since you guys said that there's a lot of people who's for the wind turbines, where are they?
Is there anybody here? Oh, we got a salesman here.
I heard Chuck say something about 400.
Yes.
Where are they?
There's approximately 400 in it.
Well,
Just here 2 weeks ago, I think you pretty well stayed 200. Did we go on that far?
Okay, let me clarify that. That's correct.
That'd be fine.
What the project between Fremont and Page is
Well, we ain't worried about Fremont right at the moment. We're patient.
When he was here talking about that, the number that was given of the landowners was 270. I went to our recorder's office and asked for all landowners in Page County that have signed some sort of an easement for wind turbines or the transmission line. And that number is just shy of 400. Now, a lot of those, as we know, over here are being deleted, but they were originally signed. There was some interest on the part of those landowners.
And then on the landowners, family inherited like 10 kids, 6 kids, each one had a son. So we might have the same piece of ground.
No, actually, that was purged. You can check
No,
Brenda,
when you go to the courthouse,
Brenda's size, because she was the one that went through, because she didn't include any multiple names. And you can ask Brenda, that was the number she came up with.
Well, if you change your mind, you don't want it.
Pardon me?
What if you change your mind and you don't want it?
I don't know how that works. I've never signed a contract.
It's the same way as
Does anybody have another public comment?
Yeah.
Are you accepting one landowner?
Yes, I think, Chairman, are you, public comment?
Well, they'll wait until after we're done in person.
I just have a quick question. I told somebody else to ask it, but what did you mean when you said that ship has sailed?
Well, here's the deal. The ordinance that we have, and this question came up at our last meeting when Inventor was here. I think Jacob asked a question, or made the comment, said, Chuck, you said we can change the ordinance. And absolutely, we can change the ordinance. The reality is, and I'll just tell you, get mad, you throw stuff at me, I'm not gonna change this ordinance because, at this point, for this project, because what that will mean, these 400 landowners, probably in Mid-American, will sue Page County.
So can you tell me why for 2.5 years you made us wait until after a project was submitted today? This is October last month.
How many meetings have we had?
And you kept telling us you weren't gonna talk about it, you weren't gonna put it on the agenda for a period of time, you deleted public comment until the project was submitted. Chuck, you said it for 2.5 years.
Crooked, Chuck.
That was my only question, was that ship has sailed. So that's what you mean, for the 2.5 years, you've been telling us that, but now that we're to the point where you actually promised us a meeting where something could be changed, because that was asked.
Okay.
We're to that point now,
I'll
and that ship has
put
sailed.
it this way, I won't change my vote on this and put us at risk. Now, if
Do
you want to change
do you not think there's a risk of people in the county suing?
well, I think there is that risk, and I would invite you to utilize your liberty if that's what moves you. But I'm telling you, check the case law, because I have not found a case law result in Iowa. I'm not saying there's not one or two out there, but I haven't found it where non-participating landowners have successfully sued because their property rights.
So you're scared, you're more scared of the company.
I'm more scared of losing
Then why didn't we talk about it 2.5 years ago?
Yeah. Because we had landowners who can exercise that right to get in these, they were in these lease agreements before we had an ordinance.
Did you write the ordinance?
And we had an ordinance to put decommissioning in and to put some setbacks in.
I have a question here, and that's kind of our timing discussion now. We're getting to the timing discussion. How, if we can vote this up or down, okay, no one has presented us anything. Nothing. And the people right now that are out building a house currently in Page County somewhere, according to our ordinance, if it's presented or whatever the ordinance submitted, they don't even get the foundation set back. They don't. It says as of the time it's submitted. That's the question I had. So, who cares about those people? We're not worried. When these things are happening and they can't, we don't know they're building a house. They can't tell us they're building a house. I do not understand how this can be this lease can be signed between these private people. We've had nothing to do with it. We make an ordinance, things happen, we adjust ordinance, we learn things, we adjust ordinance. They're planning, do we vote the plan up or down? That's the question. Do we do that?
Well, we have voted, yeah, but when
they present this project, what if they do crazy things in the project? We don't like, what if
then I'll vote it down if it's crazy. If it doesn't comply 100% with the ordinance, then I'll vote it down.
Well, we were told. One point here is, and I would tell Isaac Langford, whoever the other guy was, he lied in this room. His word means zero to me. He lied to me once, you're done. Okay. I wouldn't say that unless I had black and white video proof of it. I mean, we proved it. So, anyway, so this is very serious. We've got lying salesmen who cheated us once in Page County. Infinity has cheated us one time. It's on the books, it's on the record, you go back to minutes and read it, it happened. They paid us half, 1 out of 1, they cheated us. I was here when they cheated us, I didn't like it. Now they lied to us. I hope the whole world knows that maybe this is a junk company, because that is terrible, and I hope that's in the big print somewhere. They lied, I can prove it, it's in the minutes, they were supposed to, but they did not go where they were supposed to drive, they broke the road agreement. How are we supposed to trust them on this ordinance? I don't trust them at all. How are we going to enforce it? If we're scared they're going to sue us, what kind of lousy company is that, for one? And then number two, They've got 10 times the lawyers' money than we've got. We're gonna be scared of them the rest of our life, long as I live. And I don't, so this is scary to me. I like people to do business above board, and in the light of that. And this is not the light of that.
Can I put a little context in this ordinance? Let's say that you're building your house. You're 3 years into building your house, Jacob. You've hired architects, you've hired design people, and now all of a sudden, and you've got this beautiful house, you've got this expense tied up in your building your dream home. Now, 3 years into that, the county says, you know what, we're not allowing any new construction in the county.
That was their choice. This was actually my question. This was actually the question that I was gonna ask next. What would apply then? What would apply? The county's new rules or even the grandfather in person? The county's new rules count, don't they? And why don't they in this case? It sounds to me like the only reason we don't count is because you made a deal with the devil.
We would get sued in that. You would sue the county and we would lose. You would.
So you have. I want to say thank you for finally coming forward and saying that you do not work for us people. You work for the company that's a billionaire that you're scared to.
You promised us for 2.5 years we could have a meeting and time to change things as soon as something. Let him sue us. I agree with that. Let him sue us.
It's serious. No, not yet. No. I'm the chairman of this meeting. You can speak in a minute. I won't silence you. You're away from this. Anybody that's drove and spent time coming here, just give preference. Okay. Yes, sir. Thank you.
First of all, I am not a resident of Page County. I'm close enough that I can spit on it for my farm. One giant step, and I'm in Page County.
Can I get your name?
Margaret Stallworth, thanks, Tracy. So this affects me as well. The question I have for the supervisors is, according to your own assessor, businesses here are taxed at 90% of their valuation. Yet you have cut a deal with energy companies that they get a pass the first year, and then it's an incremental step up in single-digit numbers. So why do the wind energy people get a subsidy other than what they're getting from the wind energy people? So Tenaska can come in here, Mid-America can come in here. They not only get their subsidies from the federal government, but you're subsidizing their business as well with using these people's tax dollars.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And you're running over us.
Why should any do business with
The board of supervisors, in 08, the board of supervisors, like many counties in Iowa, when wind energy was being promoted heavily by Governor Branstad and by Chuck Grassley, when they made a drive to get wind energy onto the radar of manufacturing and production in Iowa, many counties, I can't tell you the exact number, Margaret, but Page County was among many counties that did the tax incentive. Jacob asked us to look at rescinding that. We voted not to rescind that. And my reasoning is that the Iowa Utilities Board, or the state of Iowa, does all the tax increments. And Jacob made a point that is infuriating. 90%, Horsley pays 90%, and the Mid-American building out here is on graduated. But if we're going to be really fair about taxes, that's above our pay grade.
No, we could repeal it, and it says very clearly, then the supervisors at any time feel the county's best interest may repeal. Simply repeal.
Okay, again, we go to 30%, but it still doesn't solve that fairness issue. Horsley's still going to pay 90%.
And so
Iowa Utilities are paying about 30%. Iowa Farm Grounds at 16%. Iowa Farm Buildings are at 22%. That's all out of our bailiwick. We don't regulate that.
Now, the utilities aren't supposed to be responsible. This is an investment. Wind turbines are investment. And utilities is, seeing the infrastructure we have to have. Right. That's why this is regular. But anyway, it doesn't matter. It's about us accept that this was put in. I know why they did it. I don't think they were trying to do anything wrong. They were trying to drive something new to happen. I get that. But now looking at the situation and looking at hindsight 2020, we wouldn't have to rewrite anything. All we would have to do is repeal it. And we can do that any moment. And they would have to say, The same tax, I'm not saying they pay $1 more. And I do believe if it was repealed and they pay fair taxes like everybody else, we would be able to lower their taxes and everybody's taxes if they built some, because we would have way more come in off that. They're gonna pay almost nothing for years, nothing. So anyway, that's just a point there. We do have that power. There's something we don't have, but we do have that power. It's a one-page document, it's pretty simple. That works. So, on that way, I think we could, and I think that's fair and right. And they are all subsidies anyway. They're so heavily subsidized, they get subsidies for their subsidies. So.
I want to circle back to something Chuck said in 2008. So I was a supervisor, and I never felt that the state was strong on me. I counted to sign on the list, so what was the logic behind that? You were not a supervisor at that time.
I just know there was a big push from many people in state government. I didn't use the term strong arm, so.
I do.
Okay. And I know a lot of counties did sign off on that. Same as, we look at economic development, there are usually incentives. We have the new scooters, 2 new scooters in Page County, and I know the one in Corinda received a $100,000 tax break as an incentive. I don't know what the city of Shenandoah did with that. That's not unusual. And from an integrity standpoint, I agree. People shouldn't lie, and I don't like that. But I don't like going back on your expectations. If they come in, or if you have a partner, whether it's a business partner, a marriage partner, and here's the expectation, here's the ground rules, and say, well, on second thought, I'm going to take away the consent.
So should you get married the day before? Should you go ahead and get married and find out it's not a good deal?
Well, I believe that if we change anything to benefit the safety of the residents of Page County, and they chose to sue us, we're not doing this for money, because they didn't find a better deal, like another company's going to pay for it. We're doing this based solely on safety, and they choose us, they're scumbags. And I fight them in the world. So that's wrong.
Speaking about expectations, these companies work on stock valuation, and the expectation is that stock's going to continue to go up. And if it doesn't, then do they have the same disappointment as if Page County changed their ordinance? I doubt it.
Through the stock market.
Through the stock market.
We're looking at this, I look at it totally for property rights and safety. That's all we really affect. We don't have effect over a lot of these issues. But anyway, is there anybody else? Yeah.
I have a silly question. Can you modify or add amendments to the existing ordinance?
Yes, we can, I believe.
Yes.
I believe so.
Yes.
I mean, we have to be able to.
For all these people that have wind turbines going in next door, and the danger zone covers 40% of their property, or 40% of the danger zones on their property, don't you make an amendment that says if somebody's going to put their wind turbine where 40% the danger zone is on my property, then they pay me 40% of what they earn.
Hey.
Yeah.
That would protect your absentee landowner if you're worried about making taxes.
That's not really fair. I just want to make the point that all absentee landowners are not evil corporations.
No, we all know that. They make their living off by absentee landowners.
Nobody said that.
You're the one that said
Okay.
Caleb Cole. I want to read the minutes from, I think, October 19, October 29, 2019. This is when this ordinance was adopted. On motion by Hertzberg, seconded by Morris, the board moved to open the public hearing regarding the wind turbine ordinance. The wind ordinance is read. Brian Yurkowski discussed with the board how the wind turbines take away from the health from the beauty of the land. Actually, Yurkowski expressed concern over the aesthetics and the beauty of the land. Actually, Yurkowski expressed concern over the aesthetics and the health risk of the turbines. Both discussed the disposal of these turbines in the future. And the cost.
costs. Gary Davidson discussed with the board the tax impact and that it would lead to tax increases and also impact on wildlife in the area. Ellen Nowhere discussed with the board the health impact and the fact that these companies are non-transparent with their actions. All three of the individuals discussed this would decrease the value of the property. On a motion by Moore, seconded by Hertzberg, the board moved to close the public hearing. On a motion by Hertzberg, seconded by Morris, the board moved to approve all three readings, waiving the first and second reading of the ordinance. The board felt it was necessary to approve the ordinance to protect the county infrastructure and residents. This ordinance includes a decommissioning plan and road use agreement. The board plans to further research this and potentially amend this ordinance. They plan to hold future meetings to discuss this again. So, and then there was 2 meetings after that because the public thought that they had input on it. But after going through these meetings, these minutes, it's legal, but it's not ethical. You guys waived 2 readings of this. You waived it in October. And now you're telling us we're SOL because they're going to sue you. Well, there was a lot more people here in December than were here in October. So I just don't understand the waiving of the reading. Are the readings not where you would have more public comment if you know, it's kind of a sly way they do it anyway. Put it in the paper, nobody reads the paper, whatever. I just want to point that out. And I want to point out also, the board plans to further research this and potentially amend ordinance. But now we're saying we can amend because of the and that was asked. That was asked a lot in that meeting. In the December meetings. It was that, I know I was at the December meeting. It was asked a lot.
I asked that October 29th, 2019, and Chuck turned around, and the county attorney was sitting in the back corner, and Chuck asked the county attorney, if we sign this, can we make amendments? And the attorney said he thought he could.
Yeah, Carl was there. Carl was there signing it. So, yeah.
Okay, anybody else?
Yeah.
I wasn't going to speak tonight, but I'm confused by some of the comments that Chuck made. He said our ship has sailed. And a little bit later he said we're open to compromise. And a little bit later he said no, we're not going to do it. And as Jacob has said, sign of a good contract is when both parties are happy. I experienced that in the school board, where we had a pretty argumentative session. As a member of the school board, I felt like they gave up too much. The representative of the CEA felt he didn't get enough, but we reached a compromise. And after it was signed, I was so grumbling that we gave up too much. The attorney told me, he said, and I will never forget this, the sign of a good contract is when both people are unhappy. And we're unhappy. Now go back to this, and changing gears, back to your 10/29/19 hearing, Carl Thompson, who was in attendance, said the county is committed to the ordinance it passes. The details can be amended. So anything in this ordinance, this proposed ordinance, can be amended before or even after Invenergy makes their plan public. And 2 years ago, when this thing blew up, and I told you before that I was 100% in favor of wind energy. And then I went out and did my homework, and I talked to people that lived near them. They couldn't sleep. The sound was invading their houses. And
And I told you about that. And I told you about the interview from Mike and Tanya Lamb from Madera County. I passed that interview on to you. And you remember what your initial response was? You said that was their personal bias. And if you're going through a living hell, that's not a personal bias. I told you that Gage County, Nebraska brought in a wind energy project at 1,980 feet. That's 500 feet further than what your ordinance states. That wasn't far enough. They amended their ordinance. So if they did it, you can do it. And I have here from Worth County, Iowa. This is from 11/24 of 2021. The supervisors eventually settle on setback distance being the greater of 1,600 feet, 3.75 times the height of the tower, that's from the blade to the foundation, or the manufacturer's safety distance. So whatever the greater of those elements are, that's what they pass. So if we're having 500-foot turbines come in and 200-foot blades, 3.75 times the height of that is 2,625 feet. My point is, other counties have amended their ordinance. Gage County, Nebraska, Worth County, Iowa. So don't sit there and tell me that you can't amend it. And don't tell me that you don't have evidence of what other counties are doing.
Are they actively producing in those counties, David?
Gage County has a project, yes, at 1,980 feet. I think Worth County is working on one through wind energy. If you want to talk about other setbacks, and I know this is in Europe, but I've got a listing here of what the setbacks are in different countries in Europe. And a lot of them are a lot greater than 1,500 feet. And all I'm saying is, 1,500 feet is not far enough for the people that cannot protect themselves. And when I first talked to you 2 years ago, I mentioned the possibility of compromise. And your response was, if we make it too difficult, they won't come. And I'm getting tired of the tail wagging the dog. You guys have bent over backwards to accommodate wind energy, and you're not respecting the rights of the citizens who have to live with these things, have to look at them, have to hear them. It's extremely frustrating. And you're sitting there smug because you and Al are insulated from your decision. You live in town. You don't have to look at it. You don't have to drive by it. It's just infuriating, and I'm not going to be affected because I live in town. There's not going to be any turbines on the whole farm. Never, ever, ever. So pay attention. And I told you, 2 years ago when you still liked me. No, you don't. You befriended me on Facebook.
I didn't discriminate. You're one of many.
I told you 2 years ago that all three of the supervisors at that time were arrogant and hubris. And two of the attitudes on this board hasn't changed any.
Why do you think they're smiling like a fun?
more than
This is
5
personal
minutes.
though, take it serious. The supervisors have to approve the proposal, right? So what can they sue if there's not an agreed proposal?
Talk with Ken Furman.
I would like for you to, you're my supervisor.
I have talked with him, that's
So
what
they
I'm
can
telling
sue
you.
when
You
there's
talked
not
with
an
him.
agreed.
There's no guarantee that
There's
how
nothing
they
voted
sue.
on?
Let him sue, okay? We can deal with it.
There's nothing voted on, Chuck.
My name's Mary Thompson, and I'm a landowner. And Bill made a comment about you're protected in the city. What is the footage for city or?
It's a mile, I believe.
Mile from.
Yeah.
So a mile is 5,680.
And I think if I may, and I don't know, this is a big part, I believe of that reason, is cities talk about annexation, and that's part of the reason why that's a little longer setback, same as with county parks, and Page County Parks are no exception, they're looking at city ground.
And that's fine. I understand that piece of your work for the city, being a city representative. But I know that this young lady here has some information that was handed out at the fairgrounds, I believe. Because I had a copy of it also. And if you don't mind, please. So you're talking about 1,500 feet danger zone. I'm fairly confident that I have some strong, opinionated neighbors that are really not wanting to have a wind energy on their farm and or go through it. What is concerning to me is the fact that I know that I have neighbors that are across the road. Yes, they do pay taxes on that ground. I get that. But as someone else pointed out, when they're talking, you don't have any skin in the game. They're talking about land ownership, Chuck. You're elected as going to represent the city of Florinda. None of us here can vote for you, per se.
No, you can't. In our districts are all open, everybody.
But you are elected to represent the city, right?
I don't look at it that way, Mary. I really don't. But yes, I have to live in Florida to sit in this district.
Maybe that's my point. You have to live in Florida to be able to sit in that current chair. So I think that's my point as far as why so many people are upset, is the fact that we have skin in the game. I know many farmers, many friends, many co-workers, many people that I've met throughout the years, and they do have a bigger and more definite concern than just to have a 1,500-foot danger zone. I think one of the things, there's a lot of things that come to my mind. When this all started, the dollar signs were just blowing away. People were thinking, oh gosh, I could get X number of dollars if we had a wind energy on my property. Well, then it came to light. This gentleman over here talked about how it burns your soil, but you've got to have your soil brought up to snuff, otherwise you're not going to be able to produce a nickel. It's hard enough for the farmers right now to produce. What it affects for children also affects for animals. What it affects for, the sad thing is, Chuck, we don't even get any benefit of the energy out of this. I think that's one of the things that maybe hasn't been mentioned. We do not get any benefit it's all gonna go to the East Coast, West Coast, we don't know. It's not gonna service us. I think that, there's a lot of, I can look back on these little notes that I've taken, and there's lots of things that people have made very good comment about. And maybe we haven't been able to put it all back together and try to bring it back around. And compromise is gonna have to be the deal. Because I understand you live in Florida, I understand. And I'm not asking you to move to the country, I'm not asking you to advocate for seat, nothing like that. What I am asking though is that you've got X number of citizens here that are concerned, and I really truly wish that you could hear us and hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I was going to ask about what's on this agenda for later. Is in here, Lee?
Yeah, you did.
Is your ISAC group benefits, should we get on before that since we're kind of on the same subject? Or can we do that?
I think we can. We need to just get the question, the timeline answered. I don't know, I guess they can wait till we're done. I guess. I think we're going to come here. So,
Do you want me to go now? Okay. I am on the agenda for later, but since we're talking about all this, I'll go now.
Will we have to go back through it again? I mean, can we take over now?
I think we can figure it out.
Okay.
My name is Amy Morrison. I'm here again. We live 2 miles west of College Springs, with Colfax Township. I was here last March expressing my concern over the turbine setbacks. I think it should be lifted from the property line at the foundation. At that meeting, and I have the notes here, at that meeting was passed and voted on that there would be a public meeting once Page County had a wind project. I attended a January meeting that Invenergy presented at, and during that public comment at the meeting, I asked again for a public meeting on wind in Page County. I'm here again for a third time, asking for a public meeting on wind in Page County before any project is submitted for approval. I believe that if we wait until after the project is submitted, you will be putting the county in a position where changes will not be able to be made. I personally don't want to have a turbine shadow pass upon my house, or the strobe light effect of the blaze moving, or the noise from my house as a non-participant. I should not bear the burden on my property for the choice of a neighboring property. I think we need a public meeting to address the setbacks, and those setbacks need to be adjusted to protect all residents participating or not. So I'm here about the time. So we were here in January. Invenergy presented their project, and they had said then that they were going to submit their actual project. I think we need to set a date for a meeting, the public meeting on it.
Well, when the chairman comes back, he'll do that.
Well, I would think I'm gonna ask to be on the agenda next week. This whole submission thing, reading the ordinance, it says, as a submitted, a lot of things change once it's submitted. Like, before people go to do an house, they're kind of prepared. So we can't have that happen. We've gotta think about that, at least. People are in construction right now, you're worried about the investors. If their house is halfway done, they're not living in it yet, our ordinance doesn't even do that anymore. So we do have some issues here, and that was brought to my attention of the submitted word. If we're gonna talk about it, we're not gonna talk about it before it's submitted. And then once it's submitted, we can check it against what we're dealing with. So that's a good point that she's making. She did ask a long time ago to deal with this point. And the word submitted is in there. So we understand that we might need to talk about setbacks. And some things, again, we can't change. But setbacks and decommissioning and those things, we can't, I believe. So, anyway,
Do you want to change the decommission? Is that an issue?
I want to look at it again, because the fact that they think it's half what we asked them the first time we dealt with them, makes me very concerned. How that money is here, and that it's real, and we can touch it. So they lied to me and cheated me once, I don't trust them. So we're going to have to be very careful with these people. They've been proven liars. This is not me, I will not throw that around like this. They've been proven, and I'll tell them when it gets on here. So, it's it's a deal. We gotta be very careful. We protect the liability of the county. You're worried about getting sued by them, well, I'm worried about them cheating. So, in two ways, we have to answer for either way. So, it's a lot to take in here. So, I understand what you're saying, and the submitted work's a big deal. So we need to, and I'll ask to have it on next week, probably address the setback and possibly decommissioning those, for the road, a couple things there, to make sure we've got it ironed out. But definitely, of course, I would entertain the idea, especially if people go to new homes and have zero protection, that we wouldn't even accept the plan until we police look at this. We wouldn't even let them submit it. We won't take it, we won't hear it until we have a minute to look at it.
And it needs to be at a time when everybody can go.
It needs to be, we will make it, I believe we should, I'm one of them here, we would make it very open, extremely open. This is the next 40 or 50 years, so a little bit of time now is over. That's my opinion on that, as one member. So, definitely, so I understand what you're asking, and I hadn't thought about this completely altogether in the last few weeks, right? The submitted work is a big deal, I see that.
Thank you. I have a question. I'm going to build a house. We don't have a footprint yet, but I'm going to build a house. And now, when it comes along, I'm in their way.
Would you state your name, please?
Shirley Long.
Sure. Okay, you plan on building a house, and you're in the footprint. Well, you would then, under the ordinance, if I understand it correctly, you have no protection. The wind turbines would have, under my understanding, they would dominate you, or they would have, what's the right word? Precedent over you.
So you lose our ability.
If you don't have a home on your land.
Yeah.
In December, a couple years ago.
You can still build it. You can still build it, but you have to sign with the.
Mark Sircone told me in the meeting in Shenandoah, and I testify to this too, that if you can build in that zone, but he told me to my face, this is word to him to me, but he told me you would have to sign a liability waiver. That if you were hurt or harmed, it wasn't their problem, because you agreed to build it. That's when everybody got very upset about that. So, anyway, the property line setback fixes all that. It makes it where, yeah, they can do what they want, as long as they have enough harm to it, that's fine. If you agree to selling that safer, that's fine. But we can talk about it. But that's how that works, if I understand it correctly.
Are we still talking?
We are, I guess.
Sure.
I didn't use my 5 minutes. Jesse Simpson again. I've got 2 brothers that are going to be moving back in the next year or 2, and they're planning on potentially building, one's for sure building a house, and the other may build a house. And thankfully, we're over in Southeast Bay, but where that project stops. But I won't be surprised if another company comes in the future. And so, but all those people that want to build houses in the future, like the brothers, that's where the I think that's where the property line is so important.
That's where I
argue. I think that when the liability is on your property now because of the trespass zone, that's just really wrong. I mean, that's to put the liability on you, and then you're not. I mean, I talked to one insurance company, and I asked if I built a house within this zone here, will you cover my house? And they said no. Well, I haven't. I need to check with more people, but that was one insurance company that said that. So, how is that fair? Again, property lines. I don't care. The setback needs to be anywhere from 15 to a mile, but that property line is really the #1 issue in my mind.
And the wonderful thing is, in the ordinance, I've said this over our interrupting, but it's wonderful that our ordinance does give people the right. So we aren't granting down authority if they want to give it up. They can personally sign all that away. So I think that's a wonderful thing to have in there. It doesn't make us lord over them. It only protects us if they want protection. I think that's a fair way to word it. That's part of the ordinance I like.
You're saying that wasn't real clear.
Okay, if anyone can choose to waive the setback, anybody.
To allow it to be close.
Yes, if we did whatever from a property line, and the wind company said we want to put one closer than that to your place, you could say, I'm okay with that, and they would pay you probably, and you could sign away. So we could do whatever, we could do 100 miles, and you could sign it away, it wouldn't matter. You could choose to sign it away. That makes it, I believe, fair. It makes it the people that's on the ground make the decision instead of us. No, we're just lining out some boundaries, some safety boundaries, is all we're doing. So we don't let a great big corporation abuse it. That's all we're doing. If they want to be abused for a price, that's fine. That's their right. I think that's how I see it, and I think that part's fair if we can adjust the properties.
Do you think that's something that you'd be willing to adjust the ordinance for?
I'm willing to talk about anything when it's reasonable, but I do think that in that table, and I know, Jacob, you don't trust hidden energy, I don't know what company you would trust. You need to have somebody who develops it that can give you their input as to what will or won't work. I mean, or where they're willing. Because I don't understand what the cost involved for the transmission lines and the way it was explained to me, the way land is laid out, particularly in this part of Iowa, that and with the high number of acreages, that it's difficult to get a project that makes any sense for a company to do.
Or cheaper, too.
Yes.
Considerably cheaper for the investors.
Well,
not have to talk to all these people.
Well, yeah.
I mean, and pay them as part of their own money back. But again, I've asked this several times. I don't mean this to be mean. We've got to decide what's right or wrong. We've got to stick with it. It isn't about whether or not they get the project. I don't want to hurt anybody's chances or help their chances. It basically needs to be what's right or wrong. Let people do what they want. If it's right or it's wrong, it shouldn't matter how hard it is to do it. It's right. Because we think it's right.
Well, the property right is right for both parties.
Amen. Right. So that's.
I mean, if I have a and somebody has an 80 around me and they can't build one because setback is the property line, well, that's really fair. If you want to take my right to build anywhere on my property, well, you can't do that just in the first place. You shouldn't be able to do that, period. It's never happened in the history of crossing over a property line. I don't think it's ever happened. And so I think that would just be obvious. That would be a starting point to be the property line. So
the property line forces them to do what they told us in the last meeting that they did.
They did, yeah. Our ordinance is written well in the light of it is. Everyone can waive. So I think it forces everybody to talk.
So that should be the compromise on the table, is the property line. And I think you guys should vote for that. And I think that would be fair. And I think that would bring a lot of gratefulness on our part. So
I would be happy to talk about that next week. We're going against time here. Time is marching. So. Okay.
What? Oh, Lindsay Justice.
Might be good now.
Nice talk.
Nobody's talking.
I had to step out because I think we all can embrace a little
No.
here. And like I said, I'm Lindsay Justice and I'm Joe's wife. And I had to step out, so I missed some of the conversation. So forgive me if I repeat or anything. Chuck, you said what skin in the game you have is you said the 400 absentee landlords that you went to and you gave them your word. And I can really appreciate that. I like to be a woman of my word because I know everybody in here likes to be a woman of their word. But since then, you have been given so much information about the dangers, about having kids having to wear hard hats because they're in the danger zone, about multiple disorders that are heavily affected by these turbines. Do those landowners, okay, I think we all can assume that these landowners got these contracts and just signed it because they saw the contracts, right?
Yeah.
Probably. Do they know this?
No.
They don't know. What would it harm your reputation? What would it harm your word? Because you said that one time, and I appreciate that. What would it harm you when you say, hey, we've had so many meetings about this. Why can't I convey to you a lot of these people's worries and fears? This is a medical issue. This is a problem. That's not you going back on the word. That's you been given more information and you saying, you should probably take a step back. I know I promised you. And I can just, there are little kids outside. And maybe they hear us talk.
and maybe they pick up on it, that they don't understand why we want so much. And that came from not the things outside. As far as been watching the little kids, they see the two-sidedness that you are doing. They see that you are more tied to the deep pockets than you are to the people who have everything to lose.
Amen.
And that's all I have to say.
Well said.
Jimmy and I live in Florida. Well, we got we're staying there. But our son lives out in Florida. He's got 3 landowners around him in California, Colorado, and Colorado. He called every one of them. He did the research. He called every one of those people. And when he explained the situation, all 3 of them said they would back him. They would not put hotels on their property.
Amen.
They also open up
I'm just gonna do
do it now.
Yeah.
I'll just grab it.
My part on the agenda instead of. I think you've heard about questioning the integrity of energy, and I went through a couple of things just to point some things out. In their talk, they said $2 million annually will come to the county. That's divided by 2 counties. That's not just 1 county. So that, that's not $2 million for each county. Well, it's divided by the 2 counties. They said 270 landowners. My family will tell you, I've spent hours and hours and hours checking out contracts recorded in the courthouse of both Page and Fremont. And the highlight are the people that are recorded at the courthouse. Well, you can't just sit there and count every single thing because a bunch of contracts are the same people. And what we have recorded of separate people is 40 contracts in Fremont of separate people and 87 contracts in Page County of separate people. That's 127 contracts, which is really a far cry from 400 people. And I'm pretty sure
hostage?
What?
I'm sorry, we're being held hostage for that many people.
Right, and being told that there's a lot more people. So if you got 400 and you got it from the reporter, she was counting things that wouldn't make any sense to count. So that number is wrong, okay? One of the young men said, "We're so happy that people have trusted our company." Well, I don't know how many people they're talking about, but it's not that many. Okay, then he said hundreds of local construction jobs. During the construction going on in Taylor County, I drove through the motels. I'm just a little nuts, but I drove through the motels, and I've got lists of what states they're from. So many different states, and we talked to those people, and they came in from out of state to work in Taylor County. So it's not hundreds of local jobs. I've got a contract with somebody, and I found a little paragraph about confidentiality. It is a gag order, and to sign it, they're supposed to not let anybody know anything about what they signed. Now, if you've got a company that's giving you a gag order, their integrity has to be questioned. And what do they have to hide? What are they doing? Why are they hiding? And I've seen in the media the sheriff warning people of scams in this area. Where has the sheriff been? Warning the people of this possible scam. Because these people that have canvassed, they found people that didn't know anything and were told different things from their neighbors. So, we've been told that environmental reports are all okay. We need to see the environmental reports. That should be public record. I think somebody tried to get the environmental reports, and And they wouldn't show them, they wouldn't let them, so what are they hiding? Now, from the very beginning, Chuck said, it's none of our business really, it's between the landowners and the corporation, so you guys need to talk to your neighbors. So that's what we did in Southeast Page. We did a lot of talking to our neighbors. You know what Invenergy says? Don't talk to your neighbors. So we were fighting the wind turbine, trying to keep secrets and lies underneath the radar. And that is the opposite. Invenergy should talk to our neighbors. And should talk to everybody, and these canvassers have proven that they have not talked to everybody. So we're just asking that our supervisors be a hedge between us and the corporation. I mean, that really is your job. And if I've heard a couple of them talk about being sued as a reason to not do anything with the ordinance. And if you're really that afraid of being sued, if you do something for the people in your county, then you need to look in your heart and think, should I be in this job right now? Or shall I just go? Okay, you want some positive input? ADLS, Aircraft Detection Lighting System. This is a solution that would affect everybody in this county and the counties beside. Aircraft detection lighting systems, they're out there. We want that in our ordinance as the people that put up turbines, if they actually come, need to have this radar system on the turbines so the lights are not blinking all night every night. We want a cap on the number of turbines. We want a cap on the height of turbines. We want something in the ordinance that says the flicker will never go on the neighbor's house. No matter what time of day, what time of season, anytime. It won't hit the neighbor's house. And decommissioning costs can't be worked with until they hand it in. But I hope that you're doing your research, both on the ADLS and the decommissioning costs. There's a lot of research to do, and you actually said a week after they did the proposal. It's going to take a lot longer than a week to research their stuff on the ordinance.
So the week time, we have to figure out where all these things are, if they're running over anybody.
And then you've got to research stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else in the room? I'll go to the offer to people online.
I would like to point out when Justice Simpson was up there and asked Chuck a question about setting back the property lines and stuff off that sheet. Chuck, once again, the first thing you did was go to defend the wind company that we can't do that. That's exactly. You went right to defend the wind company.
Yeah,
in response to Justice Simpson.
I would add to that Chuck talked to me the other day, and again, kind of repeated it tonight, that we can't change the ordinance because it's going to cost the company more money. And again, I asked,
I did not say it would cost the company more money, it would cost the county. I believe her.
Again, I'm just wondering who you're recommending.
That's an understatement, and that's all I'm saying.
Okay. Anybody else in the room?
I do want to ask, is Alan going to listen to this whole thing?
It will be recorded.
We just have to have him listen to all this.
It will be audio recorded, it's not, we're trying to video record it. Okay.
On a couple, 3 meetings, well, it's probably been 2 months. There was a couple of wind turbine guys here, salesmen, I like cars. And you asked them the question, or stated that the power plant in Southeast that's in Page County, they never paid any tax on that. Did you check that in and see if they paid?
What I found, and I was actually told this by the people who own the ground, They went to look at what taxes were paid by energy, which is not their thing. We gave them to the county for special deal, it's not their fault. But that ordinance that I think should be repealed, to be fair, they have, I think this last year on an 18-acre substation in Page County, there was $900 of tax paid. 2/3 of that was school, 1/3 of that was the county, I think, basically, if I understand it right. We couldn't even buy a full load of rock off that. So it's just, I see a giant glossy folders and sales tax, where's the money, showing the money. It's not, even the money's not there.
So you feel we got took on that deal just like.
Well, they're
road
doing,
repair?
to give them, I mean, they lied to us, I'm clear with that, but on that deal, they did not. They abided by the ordinances in place. And it is, I think it was surprising people, because a lot of people didn't know about that ordinance. It was surprising people on the land, because they were really hoping it would generate a lot of tax dollars. And when they looked, they brought it to my attention. And they said, they're not paying hardly.
Were you on the discussion of the road getting tore up?
Yes, I was here then, so I can speak to that. Yes.
But you got outvoted on.
Yes, I don't think I want to pay the full amount. I don't remember, but I'm pretty sure I voted against that. Because they should have paid what they tore up. They broke the rules. When I break the rules, it costs me money. Okay, anybody else in the room has anything to say? I'm open up because they want to talk online. Okay, if nobody else online, if anybody has a comment, you may make a comment. Right now.
I can go first, that's all right.
Yeah.
My name is Elliot Meyer. I work with the Iowa Land and Liberty Coalition. The Land and Liberty Coalition advocates for common sense renewable energy policy in the state of Iowa based on values like landowner rights and limited government, two topics that have been talked about quite a bit during the meeting today. Now, whenever it is apparent how necessary it is for America to become energy independent, the less we need to rely on foreign energy. Countries like Russia, fuel our cars, and let our homes, and let our we all are. On top of this, renewable energy has the unique privilege to operate on land that is granted through voluntary easement rather than to use practice of eminent domain to gain the land. So I would like to urge supervisors to consider landowner rights in their final decision. Landowners, rather than governmental bodies, are always able to make more effective decisions on their land. And it is important to ensure that all landowners will always have the final say for their own property.
What's your name? What's your name again, sir?
Elliot Meyer.
I have one question for you. Do you think the property line matters?
I think the property line matters, but I think also it's paramount. I really do. And I know that you agree with that because you said it already.
I'll make total sense.
Along with the rest of the supervisors up there. I just think that at the end of the day, you don't tell a farmer what to plant on their land. You don't tell a farmer what to put in the fields, and you don't tell them what to put in the fields, and they choose to voluntarily sow.
You know when a farmer, you're about liberty, I have another question for you. You know when a farmer sprays their field with herbicide, like I do all the time, if it would drift onto the neighbor, they don't contain the liability. You know what happens in that situation, Elliot Meyer, with Plant Liberty? You know what happens then?
Go ahead, please.
Well, if you don't know, well, that's pretty common. If you cross the property line with something of liability nature, you're liable, you pay. Okay? We're casting liability. I'm not saying somebody can't have winter, but they've got enough land where the neighbors all agree, build them all you want. So I really think you should be on our side with the name like, what was your name again? No, not your Land Liberty Coalition. How are you funded? That's that question.
How are we funded?
Yeah, where does your money come from?
This is a volunteer basis.
Well, somebody funds it, so it's just people just send money in and have you talk about supporting wind turbines?
I strongly believe that wind turbines, along with other renewable energy, are paramount.
Well, that's great, but we're talking about property rights and liberties, so not wind turbines or energy. We're talking about property rights, so what you name your talk with us. So again, we respect the property line, we respect liability. I just like to, I'm just trying to understand your point of view. Anybody else online want to say something? Unless you're not done, sorry, I don't want to cut you off. Anything else to say? Okay. Anybody else online, have a comment?
Yeah, I want to follow up here as well. Am I coming through okay?
Yeah.
Great. Again, I'm Mark Brown with Invenergy. I'm here with ISAC as well, where the two that spoke. I have a month or so ago there in the room, and I just wanted to follow up on just have a couple comments here, but, I mean, we do have hundreds of landowners that support this project,